start from the beginning. I know like how you got into voiceover and everything, but was there like after you got that first commercial, how long of a gap was there before your second gig?
That's such a good question. It was so long ago. I don't remember, but I know it wasn't fast enough for me to be like, "Oh, I can do this forever." It was definitely long enough that I thought, "Oh, I really like this. I hope I get to do more of it."
Okay.
Um I mean, more than probably a couple months at least. I was young enough too that I was in high school, so I wasn't depending on it to live, luckily. Um but but again, it's a numbers game with a lot of this stuff. It's a lot of auditions and then just not hearing anything, and then suddenly you're busy, and then you do nothing for a while, and then you're busy again, and then you're waiting.
Mhm.
It's weird. It's a weird freelance life.
So with this, I don't know if you can, will this be
Oh
your
my
first
God.
your first headshot?
Yes. That's terrifying. I saw, oh gosh, wow. That's a terrifying picture. That was like that was back in the day when headshots were like very staged, like very posed. Now they want them like much more real and natural. That was like a fan blowing on my hair or something.
Yeah. I like the whole like Debbie Gibson thing that you have
It
going on.
was fully Debbie. I was such a fan. Oh my gosh. She was my hero. Fully. Wow.
So what led up to Pokemon since that was your first anime role?
So by that point, I had been doing a lot more voiceover work. It was because I kept doing the voiceover work through high school and college, and I had started doing some things like audiobooks where I was getting to play different roles, and well, actually, but yeah, probably. But then I was doing audiobooks where I was just one role. I think I did the Babysitters Club books back then, the old version.
Oh yeah.
um, and doing some more commercials and stuff. But Pokemon was my first cartoon, my first anime. I'd been doing a ton of theater, which I think just prepares you for kind of anything.
Mhm.
But I still to this, I've said this before, I don't know how I got that audition or that job. I just,
Mhm.
I showed up and I was really lucky to get it and that they didn't replace me.
I thought it was funny too that you said that you didn't think it was gonna last.
Oh my gosh. If you, again, like, it was the weirdest show. And I
Mhm.
didn't, even knowing anime, again, like, anime hadn't crossed over to in the way that it did to
Right.
the mainstream audience yet. It was still kind of like you had to find videotapes of stuff you wanted to see back then. It wasn't on television in a regular way. I mean, there were a few shows that broke through, but I thought Pokemon was really a gateway anime for a lot of people.
Mhm.
And I mean, it was weird. I mean, like, there really isn't another show where the characters, like the Pokemon, only say their own name. It was a bizarre concept, And again, I was in a room of people because we didn't have things ahead of time. I mean, there were no simul dubs like there are now, and we weren't. I don't think they were as in touch with the Japanese creators. So I was in a room full of confused people in a lot of ways. So it wasn't like they were like, "This is amazing. It's the future of entertainment." We were all like, "Yeah, I don't know, just go with it.
Right.
Do your best."
And with not just Bulbasaur, but with every Pokemon that you voice, is it always been based it off the Japanese?
Uh Not always. I mean, tone wise, it usually is.
Mhm.
And definitely in the old days it was more. When I went back to start working on season 23, it had been like 15 years. Um, and the way they approach the Pokemon is different now. They don't say their name as clearly as they used to. They're more animal-like in the
Right.
noises. So it's not like we're not married to the Japanese original as much as I think we used to be. And again, like, you're changing the whole word and everything, so it's like you try to keep as loyal to it as you can, but it doesn't always work.
Mhm. And I guess if you could pick one throughout the entirety of Pokemon, is there? Because I know that it must have been difficult to bring emotion and like acting to playing a Pokemon. Is there a single moment you can pick where you really felt you had gotten that point?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think I didn't appreciate it so much back then, but I mean, like things, Bulbasaur was so like had a lot of different emotions. I mean, maybe
Mhm.
just because I did the most of that, but I was able to run the gamut of emotions with one word, which I still think is like the best training you can get, because then suddenly when you have words, you're like, oh, I already know how to tap into this stuff. And again, like it wasn't like new animation where you're waiting to see the artwork. We were seeing the artwork. So luckily, I mean, just his sweet little face would inform you. It would be hard not to show that emotion when you're seeing it. And I believe in the scripts back then, it did also indicate like what emotion was coming up. But he got to do a lot. I mean, he was kind of maternal to like some of the other Pokemon. But it ran the gamut with him. I mean, really, like, got very lucky.
Mhm. And do you have a second favorite after Bulbasaur in terms of who you voiced?
Wow. I mean, again, none of them came close to storyline wise. I liked doing Clefairy a lot because it was easy on my voice, and also I love that whole Moonbeam episode where there's like a zillion of them because I just have
Oh yeah,
it's just a fun memory of recording it. Um, so I do dig Clefairy and Clefable.
I know. I think weren't you Vulpix in a couple of the movies?
I don't know. Someone said that it's online somewhere, and it's entirely possible. But I know I think that was Rachel's role, and
Yeah.
I don't, unless like she wasn't there. It's in again. Even if I heard it, I might not know if it's me. And we didn't keep track. Like I didn't. I should have taken notes,
Hmm.
but I didn't know I'd still be talking about it.
Yeah.
I had no idea. So I remember finally at one point I started making a list, and then I lost that list. Um, so it's possible I played Vulpix. If I did, it was very quickly.
Okay.
And it's even possible I did it and then they had Rachel do. I don't. It just usually if someone was available, they had them do it. Very like once in a while, if there was like one line in a thing and they're like, oh, they can't come in. Can you just try to cover this? And if it was really low down in the mix, in the episode, but I'm gonna stick with saying it wasn't me because I don't want to claim any. I don't want to accidentally claim anything.
Hmm.
It's safer.
And what is it like being directed by Lisa with the new series?
The best. Lisa and I are actually old college friends,
Oh, yeah.
so for it's even like more special because I'm like with an old friend. And she's a really good director. Luckily, because I'd be like, oh no, she's terrible. She's really good. Um, and sometimes she has to keep me in check because I'm still my instinct is still to go back to the old way of working where I
Yep.
again enunciate the Pokemon's name or so she does keep me in line and that's great. Yeah, it's really very, very cool to be back for that.
And so after the original dub of Pokemon, do you remember what your second anime role would have been? Would it have been Philia?
Oh wow. It might have been. I think there was probably some stuff in between. I mean, I remember working on a show called Photon.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
remember like, gosh, there Shamanic Princess.
Yeah, that's a great
Is
that's a
it?
great one.
I don't even know. I mean, these are things I haven't thought about in a long time. But Philia was the next, I would say, like chunky thing I got to do, and I loved that. And that was the same team.
Right.
So like there was, I was doing. We were all just basically we were working for like Central Park Media, or for kids or Taj. Like there weren't that many places you could be working at that point in New York. Um, and luckily there weren't that at that time there weren't that many of us that specialized in dubbing work. So we really got to that's why we have so many credits from back then because we
Mhm.
literally just jumped from show to show to show, which was awesome. But yeah, it's hard. That's why it's hard to keep them all straight because there was a lot going on back then.
Well, because outside of Shamanic Princess, I know some things I personally like that you had bigger parts in were things like Golf Force and Zeo Rhymer and
I was in those. Okay.
Maze.
I believe, yes, Maze, I remember. That I do remember.
Okay.
That one's definitely right. That's the other thing. I mean, I'm taking the internet's word for it a lot of the time,
Okay.
but unless it's like in the credits, I don't know for sure that I did anything. I mean, I guess with certain roles, if I heard it, I would know. Some roles, I'm like, I'm not, maybe.
Hmm.
Because especially if it was a role, I mean more when they like do some kind of vocal effect to you or something.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I mean. I can usually identify myself if I'm speaking words as opposed to saying a Vulpix.
Hmm. Well, with how multifaceted playing the lead in Shamanic Princess would have been, do you remember your handle on that?
I want to say yes so badly. I mean, not only was it a long time ago, I was also super, super young. So it's like, I hope I did good work on it. Like if I saw it now, I'm sure I would say, oh my gosh, let me redo all of that.
Hmm.
uh, wow. I mean, it's so strange because for us, I more remember the circumstances surrounding the show than I do the show. Like I
Right.
remember, I can picture the studio. I can picture who I think was in the room. I picture like my mindset as a young woman in New York. Like it's those memories that flood back to me, and which is so unfair because you guys want to hear like the juice about the show. But for me, it's like this great memory of just a time in my life.
Right.
I remember it being a good experience. I remember like not, enjoying it, which is
Hmm.
good. But I wish I could tell you more. And so you could just cut all this out.
No, it's okay.
Sorry, everybody.
And what was the story like of the brief period where you moved to LA shortly after that?
Oh, you mean the first time?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh God, you dug. Okay. So the first time I moved to LA was just for 6 months. I honestly just wanted to see if I even liked it.
Okay.
I got to do a little bit of anime here. I really was not working a lot.
Hmm.
New York, I always say is like, even if you're unemployed, New York is a great city. Like culture finds you. You can walk out of your apartment and go to a great park, walk to a park for free. And LA is not fun when you're unemployed.
Hmm.
Because you're paying, you need a car, or even if you're taking the bus, it's not a fun life for to be struggling and hustling for work. So I did work a little. I started working with Bang Zoom a little bit back then. I think that's when I did Sojiro in Rurouni
Right.
Kenshin.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a couple things. I think I worked with Stephanie Shea back then briefly. That's when I met her. I took some great classes. I will say during that stint, I took some great voiceover classes in LA with like animation icons like Jenny McSwain.
Yep.
She's amazing. So I like some of those classes really affected me. And I think that's probably what that time was great for. And then I moved back to New York, and then 9/11 happened. I was going to go, my plan was to just be bi-coastal and go back and forth. And then 9/11 happened, and obviously everything changed. And I was like, I don't want to fly all over all the time anymore.
Yep.
So I remember at the time them being upset with me because I couldn't finish a role in something. But then obviously that was all forgiven pretty quickly when, the
Hmm.
world changed. So, and then I was grateful to be back home for a couple of years, and then finally made the real move.
I would think up until that point too that Sojiro would have had to have been the darkest emotional role that you've gotten in anime.
Yeah, that was intense. I wish I could remember who directed that. I want to, my brain, I want to say Wendy Lee, but I don't think it was.
Okay.
Um, and also just the way working in LA was so different than New York. The way the scripts were notated in LA, like, and again, they knew I had done stuff, so they expected me to know all of this. And then you
Hmm.
go through that thing as like, you're like, do I pretend I know, or do I say, you get all nervous. And so even though I had been working for a long time, I remember being very nervous my first couple jobs in LA. And so like, different things in the scripts, like a dash means don't take a pause, whatever the notes were, like a slash means this, and a dot 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 means do this. Like they had all these different ways of working, and I was completely confused.
Hmm.
Um, but that was good. I mean, it was all experience, and it was all learning. And It's just six quick months and then back to New York.
And I know, besides Kenshin, you had a bit part in the Oh My Goddess movie.
I did.
Yeah.
That sounds right. That
Okay.
sounds right. Wow. Okay. Huh. I wonder
And
who that must have been Bang Zoom also, I'm
yeah,
guessing.
yeah, and it was Bridget Hoffman directing.
Oh, okay. I remember back then, I think the way I got any of that work is I used to drive all over and literally leave a demo cassette tape of my demo reel.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably how I got that work, because it's not like we all had home studios. We weren't auditioning it from home,
Right.
or going in for every single thing, or it was just a very, very different time. And again, like, no, I can't really remember what happened with Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh at that time, because I must have flown home and recorded once or twice, because we weren't able to record from here like we are
Okay.
now. So I remember when I left, I was risking losing those jobs, which
Mhm.
was intense. But my goal was to do new animation when I left at that point.
Yeah. Well, because I'm not sure if you even know, but your role as Sojiro was taken over by Melissa Fawn, and you guys
Oh,
kind of have
yes,
similar
yes.
sounding boy voices. So
Yes, that makes sense. Yeah, I know. It's so funny because, like, I'm so happy when it's someone I like that.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, good, it's in good hands.
And what is your specific process for boy voices? Because I've found that it's different with everybody I've talked to, like Kari Walgren and Karen Strassman. Everybody is totally different.
It's weird. What I usually do is, like, if I can see the artwork, that definitely helps inform the voice. Um, the voices I love to do the most, like those really husky with a lot of rasp, are torture on my voice.
Yeah.
So I'll usually try to figure out a way to do it without that. And inevitably, the director will bring me into a place with the voice where it kills my throat, but I know it sounds good. So I'd rather it sound great and take extra breaks and be really careful with drinking water and all that stuff. If it serves the character well.
Mhm.
Obviously there are other boy voices that don't have that rasp in it. And if you listen to the original Japanese, their boy voices are very rarely husky. They don't really like that sound. They're higher pitch. It's just different. I feel like that's more an American thing, that really husky
Yeah.
rasp. So
So
I
what?
guess my process is just basically learning. With anime, a lot we don't know much until we get there. So
Yeah.
figuring it out with the director, and placing the voice based on like how big the role is, and then placing it in my voice in a way that I can sustain.
And since it's on the same topic, this is moving ahead way into the future, but I did just want to bring up your role as Masaru in Danganronpa. That's
Oh my gosh.
great, but really emotionally draining too.
I just watched it. I had never seen it until a couple months ago.
Oh,
People had come up to me and talked to me about it a lot. And I was like, I needed to find some character quotes for something, and I was like, okay, I guess I can watch it. And I don't love watching myself, but I felt good. It was one of the first things I felt pretty good about.
mhm.
I thought, wow, I wish I could remember who directed it, because I put that on the director. I'm like, thank you, whoever helped me through that. So intense and real and awful. And I remember sitting in my car after that session and needing to decompress. Like, I was like,
Right.
oh, I can't just go sit in traffic right now. I need a minute. But yeah, that was some heavy stuff, which I like. I mean, listen, that's why I'm an actor. I'd rather do that than just like mindless, not jibber jabber,
Mhm.
like, to me, I'm like that. I remember it was heavy, but I felt fulfilled. I was like, okay, I felt, and I think that's sort of the test, because we're not doing that stuff every day. And that's when, like, your training kicks in, when suddenly, and also I don't remember getting any kind of heads up about what kind of content that was.
Oh, okay.
Which would be nice. And that's something we've been asking for, like, because again, like, for me, that was okay, but for some other people that might have been emotionally triggering, or a content they didn't want to do. And that part was all okay with me, but it would be nice to just have like just get yourself in the mindset ahead of time. I probably would have listened to different music in my car. Like
Mhm.
that's the kind of stuff that does help if I'm driving to a session, the kind of music I'm listening to and all that, just to get in the headspace for it.
Do you think that that role is probably the darkest place you've had to go for anything?
That was dark. I mean, I played Jin in Dead Island.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was really heavy. I mean, I just remember sobbing in the booth. I mean, there were just tears, she's
Mhm.
watching people die around her. And I've gotten to do a couple heavy things actually, which I dig. I like that. And video game acting again is, you're not looking at the picture, you're not seeing any of that, but it's got to be so real. I mean, that's like film style acting a lot of the time. So
Yep.
they want you to go there. I mean, it was Harris Orkin maybe directing that, and I love being pushed by a director. I'm not somebody who who pushes that away. I want them to make me go there and force me to be out of my comfort zone. So that was a rewarding session, even
And
though it was awful and
yeah.
intense.
And sort of on that same topic, just based off your answer, I guess, well, in terms of anime or just in general with voiceover, has there ever been a overtly negative experience with directors or recording for you or anything? Or has it been mostly positive?
There've been a few. And the truth is most of those directors don't work anymore. Like if they're that bad, I just was one of the unlucky few to have experienced it. Like I worked on a game a long time ago, and I remember finding out like that the director was fired a few days later. Like I was like one of the only people, and honestly, the trouble was that especially with games as voice actors, what most directors do is they keep all the really guttural, hard yelling stuff to the end of the session.
Yep.
And I had been working long enough that I knew that was normal. I knew how to use my voice. And we're working, and the director said like, okay, we're doing this. I'm like, oh, is it cool if we save that for the end? And they said no. And yeah, and like things like that kept happening, where it was clear that this was somebody who hadn't really just done video game work and didn't respect that I understood my voice and no one else. It was so odd because I think now people are much more aware of that. This was at least 10 years ago, I guess.
Okay.
And again, I was slightly intimidated. It was an intimidating room, but I knew that I didn't want to lose my voice, and it ended up hurting for days. Like it ended up being a really terrible experience, and luckily other people realized that and they got fired. But yeah, so that's the thing. It's like, it's not good dish because these people are not anyone you would know,
Right.
because they didn't last, luckily. So it's been more like that. It hasn't been anyone being like horrible to me. It's been more like, oh, they don't understand how voiceover directing works.
Yep.
Like, yeah, that's a shame when that happens.
And in terms of video games, I would think that maybe, oh, whoops, the first one that you would have done was Valkyrie Profile.
That sounds right.
Okay.
I remember that, and again, I remember the studio, but I don't remember the content of what I did. Or Ape Escape, I guess, could have been one of the first.
Yeah.
Or the Pokemon games, I guess, could have even come before those.
Yeah, because you got to be in even the early Super Smash Brothers games and everything.
Yeah, sometimes we worked on them. Sometimes I think our voices just appeared magically
Oh,
in those.
okay.
So there are some when I remember actually doing the games, yeah.
And this would have been, I think, the second time you came back to LA, but when were you taking over the role of Gina Sage in Tales from Colleen?
Guess so. I guess she wasn't available. Like I don't really, again, and it's so odd because we don't always know that that's what's happening. And if as someone who wasn't a gamer, I had no idea that. I don't think I knew that I was taking over a role. Nowadays we're much, as actors too, we're really considerate about all that stuff. Like we'll write each other notes like, hey, is this cool? Was this your choice to leave? want me to say yes or no.
Yep.
And I didn't know Colleen then. Now I love her and I talk to her all the time. But yeah, I think she even went back and did it, so I assume she just wasn't available.
Mhm.
But that was my first job at Cup of Tea, which is a place I love to work. And that's another role that gets brought up a lot too now. I still again, so I should probably watch some of it.
Mhm.
I'm so grateful to all the gamers who put gameplay online, because otherwise I'd have to learn how to play games. It would take me like 6 weeks to get to my like I've tried and I can't find I can't find anything, and I have no instincts for it.
Yeah. And this is a more obscure one, but
Okay.
Rayearth,
Oh yeah.
Hikaru, yeah.
Yes, that was, well, I've talked about this before, but that was recorded in Staten Island.
Yep.
And and I'd take a ferry to get there.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was my first time like on the Staten Island ferry, I think. And we did a bunch of sessions. It was really cool, but it definitely took a long time to get there. But that, I remember that being a really good experience. I'm trying to remember who the other two girls were in that. Was Lisa in that?
No, I think it was
You probably know better than I do.
Sharon Becker.
I don't know.
She was in Utena. You were on Utena.
Oh, Revolutionary Girl. No, okay. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I remember the director was really good, and it was. I think it was nice to have a chunky role with two other female leads. You know, that was a really cool experience. But again, it's like about the ferry. Like I think when you say Magic Knight Rayearth,
Rayearth,
yeah, I think of a ferry, which is so unfortunate because I wish I again remembered more about the show.
And you got to be in one of the incantations of Leo, the White Lion,
that was I think NYAV Post.
Yep.
And Michael Sinner Nicholas actually gave me a cell from that. I have.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that I really enjoyed. That I remember a little more because that was basically Lion King.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. I enjoyed that job. That was still neat. That was New York. Yeah.
And do you remember the audition for Anna and Shaman King?
No. I mean, I'm sure I did audition. There were roles during the 4Kids days. There were roles that we auditioned for and roles that like sometimes we were just assigned.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mokuba, it was funny because someone asked me recently, like, how did you get the job of Mokuba? And I was like, I don't think I auditioned.
Okay.
And they thought I was crazy. And I was talking to Eric Stewart about it. We were on a panel talking about it. And he was like, oh, it's entirely possible you didn't. He's like, I don't think we knew that it was a recurring role.
Okay.
So sometimes with the smaller roles, they would assign it and then magically they would become bigger roles. And you're like, oh, cool. I didn't even have to read for this. But again, I'm never unhappy to audition. It's just nicer when you don't. Anna, for Shaman King, I think I know I auditioned. I vaguely remember it being a time when I was playing a lot of little boy voices and being so excited to read for a female, cool, tough character. So I remember I loved doing that show then, and I am just really, really happy to be doing it again. That was a character that I really, really dug. So I'm a fan.
Do you think that you can relate the most to Anna in terms of anime characters you've played? No.
I find this, you find stuff to relate to in the characters. I don't know that I have a ton in common with her. I mean, I think in terms of, I look at her like I look at like Biscuit and Philia, like certain characters. I think what I like about them and the part that I relate to is that they're tough and they know what they want, but they have girly sides. And I love that they're not afraid to show their girly sides too.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think there's a lot of character, like, again, it's whatever you need. I think that was something for me that I enjoy seeing. Again, there's other people who would enjoy them not showing that because that's not what they relate to, and it's not at all necessary in a character. But for me, I was like, oh, okay, I can be a girly girl and then I can go win a battle. Like I can do both.
Right.
And that's that part of it I related to in all of those characters. Yeah.
And regarding what you said in terms of not having to audition for parts since you played multiple random monsters on Sailor Moon before Body On. Was that the same situation?
I don't can't I'm trying to think if I think I did audition for that. Some of the other roles in the show itself I don't think I auditioned for, but Body On I'm pretty sure I did. And that was actually, I mean, in certain ways, that was the darkest role I've ever played.
Mm-hmm.
She was pure evil. I mean, like, sometimes you try to find the good in your character, or you're like, why are they the way they are? And I remember we were doing like some DVD extras for it, and we were like, yeah, what was it with her? And we're like, maybe nothing. Like, maybe honestly, she was pure evil. And look, that's what that show needs.
Yep.
It needs a villain. And again, yes, I'm sure I could do a backstory for her where she, something trauma in her life caused her to be like this. But like, I don't know anything that could justify how evil that woman was. I mean, she was like taking kids' candy and putting them in coffins, and
Yep.
like it's hard to find anything redeemable about that lady. And again, that was another situation. I remember sitting in my car and needing to decompress and being like, oh, I was just really bad. And sometimes being a villain and being bad is fun. That wasn't one of those. That was not fun. That was intense and a good acting experience, but it wasn't nothing fun about that. Yeah.
Because when I talked to,
sorry.
what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I remember having people on the line that really knew the proper, like Sailor Moon and Super S. What was that?
Oh yeah.
Knew it really well. So there were a bunch of people there who were able to really help me through that, which we don't always get.
Mm-hmm. Well, because when I talked to Tara Platt, and she was one of the main villains in the third season, she said that she also auditioned for one of the main like Sailor Scouts. Did you ever do that?
I've probably read for 50 of the Sailor Scouts. But sometimes what happens is, and that's why I'm not sure about auditions sometimes, because if I audition, because a lot of the time they'll use your audition to cast you in something else. Like I actually think Body On might have been that I read on a different role. And I feel like he said, like, I heard that and I said, oh no, Body On for Tara. Like,
okay.
So sometimes they're using your audition to cast you in a different role. I know like there's studios that do that. They just keep files of the auditions and they're like, oh, we have another villain who was our second choice last time, or who do we think sounded too mean? Like we can use them for this. So which is great because they have, kind of a database of who does what well.
Yep. And that's how you got because you auditioned for Gon and Killua too, right? That's how you got Biscuit. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that's how I got Biscuit. I think I think she used either my demo or a different role I had done. Because again, that their process, we don't know what goes on their end. I know that she had to submit me. I didn't read the role of Biscuit, but I think what she did was she either sent an example of another job I had done or my demo. So it wasn't just like handed to me. I had to get through a process, but we're never told very rarely told. And, and sometimes you kind of feel dopey asking like, how did I get this?
Right.
And they have, they're casting a million roles. They don't have time to like explain to everybody the process of what went down. So yeah, that Biscuit, I remember thinking, when I auditioned for Gon and Killua, I remember really wanting it. And then in retrospect, and then obviously being incredibly impressed with the girls who got it. And then And then, when I finally got to join, I was like, oh, this is what I was waiting for. Like, this is even more fun.
I'm going to throw another curveball roll here. Okay. Multi and 2 Heart.
So I don't know that one I'm not sure about. Someone else asked me about that and I wasn't positive.
Okay.
It was me. I mean, listen, it's entirely possible it was, but I don't remember that at all.
Okay. That's
so sorry. No, your research is good. I'm the one who really just doesn't know. I guess I should watch it and see if it sounds like me.
What about there was another one at that same year. You played a boy named an anime called Shingu. Stellar Wars.
I don't know.
That's another mystery.
That sounds familiar.
Okay.
Oh, I'm so sorry. This is just a long time ago. Wow.
And it was cool that you were incidentals on the first Berserk, and then you were like a main character in the
Yes,
one.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that until I looked it up, but yes, I must have done very little on the first one. But yeah, I got to go back to it, which was very much. I got to do much more, which was nice. That was a fun one.
And so, in terms of the chronological timeline, when you were doing Fridays, were you not doing any voiceover stuff?
Oh, I was doing more commercial work then.
Okay.
I'm trying to think. So I moved. It was 2005 when I started on camera job on Fridays. In case people don't know what we're talking about, I was hosting a show called Fridays on Cartoon Network. And my schedule was pretty open, but I would have to travel to Atlanta to shoot like a week a month or something. So it was hard to commit to certain things because they would want you around whenever they needed you.
Yeah.
But I was able to do commercial work during that time. I don't think I did any anime during that time. I sort of took a little I burnt out on anime for a little while, to be totally honest. I was doing so much of it in New York that I needed a minute. And
Yep.
then that job came. I was doing theater also, so I was very busy doing like theater at night, and then Fridays started, and I finally was able to just come to LA with a job. So I was like, this is sort of the right way to go to LA. And that was around the time when you could get like a travel microphone. So I had like my big funky travel microphone, and I would be in my dressing room at Turner Studios recording auditions in there, like in between. And I mean, because the truth is I loved that job so much, but my passion was voiceover. And I would be working at the Cartoon Network studios, and I was like, why am I on camera? All I want to do is their cartoons. And everyone probably thought that was crazy. And I don't think I did any work for them cartoon wise while I was there. Because that's not what they saw me as. That wasn't, those two worlds were not necessarily connected. But I was like, I can't believe I'm in. To me, I had all this, there were also all these sports things going on in this Turner building, which I knew nothing about. And I was like, I'm in the home of Cartoon Network. I want to be on Dexter's Lab. I want to be on they're all, it was a time of just amazing Billy and Mandy and Foster's Home, and just really cool stuff going on at that time.
And it seemed to really translate for you to switch to interviewing major celebrities. Was it like really daunting, or did you just take to it?
I had no idea what I was doing.
Okay.
Which I think was good for the type of show it was. They didn't want us to be too planned and rehearsed. I am a planner and a rehearser. And I was like, do you have any questions? Like, I would ask the producers, like, oh, for this, do you have any things I should hit? And they're like, no, just do what you want. And I was like, oh, okay. But I think that made for probably a better, looser, more comfortable interview. I would have to start the interviews always by saying we're a kids show.
Yeah.
Because they didn't, they were doing those celebrities do a gazillion interviews a day when they're promoting a movie. So I'd explain, like, it's a children's show, the questions might be weird. And that sort of gave me this like freedom to be like, to just talk about nonsense with them, because I knew that they were asked the same questions over and over, and that children wouldn't necessarily be interested in those questions.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, like a kid isn't, if you were at home and you were 7 watching Fridays, you didn't really care about how they got into their character, or, like, especially because the movies were usually for kids. And so I had a couple like patent silly question, pizza toppings I would ask about, just because it would sometimes lead them into a tangent that would be great.
Yep.
But not everyone was a good interview for a children's show. Like some people just didn't really, that they were very serious about their work, and they didn't really want me to ask them about nonsense. And other people were amazing, and totally rolled with it. Robin Williams and Johnny Depp, like, they were so much fun. They just, who was the Andy Richter, and yeah, I mean, he was like, I have all this footage somewhere. They were great. It was that really was the most fun part of it. Well, it was all fun. I shouldn't say that, but I never thought that would have been my job. In a million years, that wasn't what I set out to do, and it ended up probably being my favorite thing. So
I did think it was funny that, like you said, the most, like the time that you got the most daunted meeting a celebrity was with Richard Simmons.
oh, my hero. Well, here's the thing. When you know you're going to meet a celebrity, you prepare yourself
Mhm.
emotionally. So I never got too uncomfortable during those things because I knew they were going to walk in. To me, it's more scary and daunting when you see them out in the public and you're not expecting them. So it was crazy. I'll tell the Richard Simmons story. I was literally at like a shopping mall a block from my house, and he ran up to me.
Oh.
Like, all of a sudden I see this like vision in short shorts. He ran up to me, like complimented me, which was crazy. And I was having a terrible day. I think he's the kind of human who senses when someone needs to hear something nice.
Hmm.
And he ran up to me, complimented me, and ran away. And I was flabbergasted. Like, I was in such shock. I think I said something. I said, "No, you are," or something like silly back to him, and that was the last time I saw him. And I had so much I would have liked to say, but I just sat there with my mouth I must have looked like a crazy person. But yeah, because again, when you don't expect it, it's more exciting.
Hmm. And when Fridays ended, did that, this might be obvious, but did that kind of demotivate you from pursuing a career?
Oh, you mean on camera?
Or
Or
well,
in
yeah,
general?
like in general.
No, I mean, because I had my voiceover career running alongside it, and it was working with completely different people who, like, I don't even know if they realized I had a TV show that I was
Oh,
working
okay.
on. Again, in LA, like, no one really cares. Like, they're like, okay, whatever. Like, it's like, did you watch your friend's show? It's like, which friend? If we watched all our friends' shows, we'd have no hours in the day,
Mhm.
which is nice. It's like we kind of understand. But also, like, when Fridays ended, again, as it was awful and I was sad, but it freed me up to do other things, and then I could take more like jobs with like more commitments. And like, I remember sometimes I'd go on auditions for things, and they were like, "Oh, if you're gone for these days, we can't even audition you," because I knew that Fridays was my priority. So it actually freed me up to do a lot of stuff, which was, I'd spent a lot of time traveling, and I was like, oh, maybe I don't have to get on a plane for a little while.
Yeah.
It's sort of nice. So no, it did totally like reinvigorated me, I think. And I did more hosting work after that, actually. I would do junkets for different outlets, and then I finally at a certain point was like, I don't want to put on makeup all the time and worry about this stuff. I really like the voiceover thing. I think I'm just gonna focus on this.
I know after that, I know a major anime role would have been in Saint Seiya.
Oh yeah, that I wish more people in the US had seen that. That's a show that I hear is like huge in Latin America.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like it got seen, and it's a bummer because I really enjoyed working on that.
Yeah, all the like mysticism and mythology and
Yeah, and it was
related
like
to it.
yeah, and Todd Haberkorn directed that and was great. It let me like use my voice in a more adult way than I had in a long time.
Hmm.
And he trusted me to do that. Yeah, that show was good. I just wish more people saw it.
And I imagine this is really embarrassing, but I did just watch Foreskin Intervention.
Oh gosh. That was like a favor I did for a friend. That was a silly short film I did. You guys don't have to watch it. Yeah, I think someone like wasn't available that day, and he was like, "Can you come just fill in?" And I was like, "Sure." Like, that's how a lot of stuff happens here.
Yeah.
So I think I found out that morning, and I was like, "What am I doing?" Okay, and it was a short film about an adult who has a circumcision,
Hmm.
which was very funny but kind of dirty. And it was kind of like gory, gross. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't like, yeah, it's not like dirty, but like, yeah. But yeah, that was fun. I mean, I got to, and again, like the fun of this all, and I think this is the fun of this, and the goal for a lot of people is like to make great work and work with your friends. So when
Mhm.
your friend calls and is like, I lost an actor, can you come? It's like, oh yeah, that's the most fun job because there's no pressure. Like, even if you stink, you were just filling in. Like,
Mhm.
how bad can you be? They would have had nobody if you didn't go help out. But yeah, again, just working with friends is really fun.
And that same year was when you were on the Sarah Silverman show.
Mm-hmm. That was another job for a friend was directing that episode. I had like one line. He's like, "Do you want to come do this?" And I was like, "Absolutely." Well, she's my hero. I mean, I
Yeah.
should say, like, I had, and the truth is, I had auditioned for some other stuff on there, so they knew
Okay.
I could like come through. They weren't like, they weren't like, we don't know if she can act. So I had auditioned. Had auditioned for a role because someone on the show was pregnant and they didn't know if she would be available or not. So I had
Mm.
auditioned to like be like a waitress or something, and then she ended up being able to shoot it. So they had seen me do that and they were like, okay, we can let her do this. But again, that was a friend. Everybody Hates Chris I worked on, but that
Yep.
I don't think I knew anyone on that. So that was that was nice. That was just a regular audition process. I knew actually I did know someone who worked in casting, but who didn't make the final decision on that. But that's how a lot of stuff happens. It's like,
Yep.
again, it's this annoying who you know game.
And what was might have been before that, but your Lipton soup commercial?
Oh yeah, that was when I was still in New York.
Oh, okay.
Those were so much fun. Nick Kroll was in those too.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew him back in New York. He's so talented. He's the one who creator of Big Mouth, if you guys
Yep.
don't know. Hey Nick, put me on Big Mouth. No, just kidding. Which I love. It's a great. Everyone's so good on that. Those commercials were really fun. I mean, there's part of me that sometimes misses, doing those on camera things when you get like a fun script like that. But I got to be as annoying as possible, which I enjoyed. Are those still available to watch?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Because you
it's on my reel, probably.
Yeah, that's why.
Okay, so we did a whole series of those. So there was like a whole Lipton series of commercials with like, so I would show up in the other characters and have a line in that. So that's why it was like Nick and a bunch of different great people. So we shot that in a blizzard.
Oh.
We're like, are we gonna get back home? Yeah, that was weird. Oh, and during that, this is again why I don't like on camera. I had to hold a cup of soup. I had a white sweater on, and I accidentally spilled the soup all over my sweater, and they did not have a backup. And I like thought I was there. They all were so mad at me. So finally, I think they bleached it out. They had someone run into the city again in a blizzard to get a backup sweater.
Oh,
God. It was
God.
a nightmare. I was like, I can't be responsible for this. I just want to talk.
Yeah.
Just talk. I can't be responsible to not spill soup. Why would you put soup in there? I get it's a soup commercial, but like I think after we got the shot where you saw it, I was like, put water in here. I'm gonna spill this thing. And the more they told me not to spill it, the more I was just thinking about spilling it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was so stressful.
So I did want to, before going into more recent anime stuff, I did want to touch on audiobooks because you've been. When did you start doing them?
I think those Babysitters Club books, I think I did, because they've redone those since, but I think I did those in college.
Okay.
And then Sammy Keys was the first like real series I started. I don't know the year.
And there's like tons of those.
Oh my God, there's like 17 or 18 books, and we didn't finish those till a few years ago. So there's a woman named Paula Parker who just really believed in me and like kind of her and her husband Paul just trained me in audiobooks basically on the job.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why they thought I could do it, but I'm so glad they did. And that was again back then, like if you did a couple books a year, that was a lot. Now I'm busy doing books constantly because the market for audiobooks is so different. Yeah. Like it was hard to make a full-time job out of audiobooks. Now there are lots of people who do that.
And did you develop a certain process in terms of self-discipline when it comes to audiobooks?
You have to. You don't have a choice. Yeah. There's prep work involved, which I've gotten better at streamlining, and also iPads have really helped. We were working with paper back then.
Yep.
Which is annoying. but I would highlight the roles in different characters. I don't do that as much anymore. I trust myself more. But it's the best audiobook narrators, and again, this is just my opinion, and I mean, I've heard people say this too, are people who come from theater, because there's a discipline and a stamina you have to have vocally, just discipline wise, sitting in that booth. Like, those are long days. You know, it's a lot of the time it's just you and you're self-directing, or if you're lucky, there's one or two other people to interact with, but that's a gift if you do have anyone else to work with. So, you know, making yourself sit down and do that is not always the easiest thing, especially like I've done a lot of sad books. I remember there was like a couple months where I had a bunch of really sad books in a row. I'm like, I don't want to go in the booth. I don't want to go in there. It's just going to be crying sad time. But luckily most of my books are like young adult or younger, and they're fun and silly. So yeah, like I'm about to record another book about like a dog and they're human, and it's totally silly. Yeah, and fun.
Have you also gotten the chance to do commercial stuff for really major like companies, corporations, things like that?
Yeah, I've been super lucky to do less now than in the heyday of when there was tons of commercials. Now it's very different. Now it's very celebrity driven, which is a bummer for us. But if you listen to commercials, so many of them are, even if you don't recognize them, are being voiced by a celebrity.
Yeah.
But I had, you know, I worked for Old Navy for a long time. I did a bunch of supermarket chains. So I had like a weekly job, like doing all the specials for the supermarket chains for their commercials. Radio commercials used to be done a lot more than they are now. So like we would work for Coke and Doritos, and I mean every McDonald's all the time. I used to do stuff for McDonald's. They're just fewer and far between. Commercial work is very different now than it used to be.
So then going back to anime and games and stuff, I know you did some really crazy things on Jojo.
Oh, Jojo. Oh, that crazy show. Yeah. you want to say what you want to say what I was on there? Or should I say? So Mannish Boy, right? And Death 13. So I didn't know going. The warning I got was there will be a lot of yelling. They did not tell me that I was an evil baby who's so awful that they get fed their own poo. And I have a bad gag reflex, and I was like almost puking in the booth. It was disgusting. But I'm so glad I did it, because it was fun at the end of the day. But I think it was that Tony Oliver directing, I think. Not sure. But yeah, I'm glad to be a part of that show. I feel like that show's got its own weird, like I've met kids at conventions that watch it, like little kids. I'm like, why are you watching that show?
Yeah.
But I do get the weird appeal. Yeah.
Well, it is one of those series too that I've noticed that people who aren't even into anime like it just because of how crazy it is.
Yeah, totally. And I got to play like that horny old lady too, who like chases him.
Yep.
And it's so weird because that ended up being one of my favorite roles ever. And that was just like at the end of the day, they're like, oh, hey, can you, I don't know if they had planned, but they were like, it was at the end of the session and they're like, we need you to do this. And I was like, yes, especially after doing all the intense stuff, to just be chase him around and say nutty stuff that was one of my favorite incidental characters ever. And people remember it. Like I have that on one of my pictures, like when I go to conventions, and like, oh, that old lady with the umbrella. I was like, yeah, that's her. Like, that's what you remember? Really? Yeah, Jojo fans are intense.
Same thing too. You were a few different characters on One Punch Man.
Yeah. That's another show that I was like, this is too weird. Who's gonna watch this? And there you go. I am not a predictor of what will be a success. I was Kombu Infinity.
Yep.
The seaweed monster who gets turned into a smoothie, I think. Yeah. So that's always the bummer. Like I didn't know, they just I don't even know if they told me what role I was playing. I think they just said, "Hey, go here this time," and I was like, "Okay." And you don't know like if you're going to be a recurring character, and that's always the hope that like your character is going to keep coming back. So then when they die, you're like, well, just this one set. Oh, I'm done now.
Yeah.
Okay. Doesn't act like that just happened with a show, and they even didn't know, again, because it's
Oh,
like simuldub. They're like, we're not sure how many episodes yet, and then it ended up and she died. I
oh,
was
you're
like,
talking
what?
about, yeah, you're talking
Yeah.
about Chitose, right?
Yes, but I
Yeah.
don't know, and I don't want to like give it away, but I think we all know that like the hero's probably gonna win. So yeah.
How did you become a part of MHA? That was really cool to see you in that.
Thank you. That was fun. That was an audition I did like many months ago, actually, because they
Oh,
knew
okay.
she was coming up. That was, I mean, that was the discussion. It was like I auditioned, I didn't hear anything. I assumed I didn't get it. And then I got the email and they were like, "Hey, we're not sure if she's in like every episode or every couple episodes." And I was like, "Okay, but still really happy to do it." And then it was like, one dead.
Mm.
But I'm psyched to be part of that show. I mean, in any way, I would have done background Walla to be part of that show. So I was flattered that they let me.
And in terms of, do you watch anime like outside of working on it?
I don't, because it feels like work.
Yeah, that's what Aaron Fitzgerald told me
Yeah.
too.
I mean, I'll try to watch, like if I'm working on something new, like with My Hero Academia, I went and watched a little bit of a few episodes to get to just so I knew the tone.
Mhm.
Because again, like, anime's all over the place with sometimes, not this show specifically, but they'll say we want very realistic, but like realistic for anime is different than realistic in a video game.
Right.
So I like to watch 5 minutes, 10 minutes of a show to just know the tone before I go in and mess everything up. And that's what I did with MHA. So
Was there any kind of knowledge before the fact in your role in Bungo Stray Dogs?
oh, I didn't know it. No, I didn't know anything about it. Susie
Okay.
Goldish, I think, just texted me. Actually, she is the. Yeah, she did. I wish I could share this text with you because it's such a good. She just texts. She's a director on a lot of shows, and she just texted me and said, "Does blank do young kid voices?" Because she just wasn't sure. It's someone she wants to hire.
Yeah.
And I love, like, that's how jobs happen a lot of the time. It's like, oh, I like this person. I'm not sure if this is in their range. Yeah. Which is kind of cool. So now it's like, oh, I can help this person I like get a job. So she brought me in for Bungo Stray Dogs. She knows a lot. She worked back at 4Kids back in the day. So she was, yeah, so we've known each other a long time. She knows my range very well. I'm trying to think. Luckily, she just knew a lot. She was able to really guide me through it because I didn't know till I got there what I was playing. It's not like and what's great now is if they do tell me, a lot of the times there's these great wiki sites for the characters, and even if the anime isn't out yet or available, the manga information is really useful. So I'm just grateful it's there to whoever's doing that. I don't know who's doing it, but it's awesome.
And this was one older crazy one I wanted to bring. You might not remember it, but it's called Ghost Talker's Daydream.
That's a show?
Yeah, you played.
What is that?
You played the lead. It's like a girl who works in an S&M club, and she's also a medium. Like after she gets off of work.
That's me. I gotta listen and see if that's actually me. Let's pretend it's not, because I don't want anyone to go watch that now. I don't want to be responsible for little kids watching that.
Yeah.
But that name doesn't sound familiar. That's so. I know. I wish I had kept notes. I had no idea. Again, no idea. I thought this stuff would just disappear the day I walked out of the studio. Oh my! I'm sorry to disappoint you with some of those things that are not real, but I guess it's helpful to know what's real and what isn't.
Yeah, that's okay. And obviously with Kari and Digimon, such a long-standing, lovely series. Even as you can enjoy it, I guess, as an older person too.
Yeah, that was an honor too, to be able to like step into that, because crazy respect for anyone who did the role before me. Whenever, when that happens, it's always strange. But yeah, that was one too. I got to like build it over the different movies. It always is nice when you get to like see a character arc. Sometimes we don't always get that. Yeah, and I know that's a thing that's important. Like, that's a show that's important to people. So you really want to make them happy. You want to do good work to make yourself happy, but you're also like, sometimes people say like, oh, doesn't matter what they think. I want to be happy with the work. I'm like, no, these are dear properties to people. Like, these are, they hold like really precious memories for people who watch them. So I want them to be really happy with it. Again, there's things I can't control. I'm not writing the script. I'm not, I get yelled at for things sometimes that I'm like, that really was not anywhere near my control. Like, I didn't write the theme song to One Piece at 4Kids. Like, I didn't do any of that. I didn't change the animation to a lollipop. Like, I promise, like, no one consulted me about anything. So I can only control what I do. So that's the part that I hope.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen at conventions and stuff that seems like people, or at least early on, people kind of gave you the brunt of stuff like that.
I can take it. I mean, listen, I'm fine if I'm the face of the show that they're gonna get to meet. They're not gonna get to meet necessarily the person who wrote that, or so if I'm who they need to take it out on, all right. I'm not real sensitive. Like, I can take it.
Yeah.
But just know that it's not helping your cause, That's the bummer.
And more real recently, again, it's multiple characters and Boruto / Naruto.
Oh yeah. Namida.
Yep.
She can be annoying, but I do really like her. That's fun too, because I get to work off of Cassandra Morris. Because our characters are friends, so, and she's my friend, so that's fun. But it's more fun when, like, I've talked about this before, like, if you're the first person to record an episode, you're not able to play off of the stuff that's already been recorded.
Right.
And a lot of times, I don't know why, just with Boruto, I'm later in the process, so I get to like actually respond to their line, which makes it way more fun for me. Just selfishly, yeah.
And I don't even know if you like might know the reason, but is there a reason why you were a child emperor in the One Punch Man game, but not?
Yeah, I think from what I remember, they weren't available for the game, and
Okay.
I knew I wasn't taking over the show when I did it. It was not. That wasn't a question.
Okay.
What was that again? What show was that?
One Punch Man.
One Punch Man. Oh, right, for the game. So I played the Child Emperor. Yes, and they said this is just a one-time thing for the game, not for the show. And I was like, okay, as long as the person, and I made sure that the person was okay with it. I always ask. Yeah.
And I guess the most recent anime, or one of them definitely, is Jujutsu Kaisen, because your characters in that are really cool.
Yeah, I get to play Momo and Urahime in that.
Yep.
That was really fun. I mean, those fighting scenes are super fun. And I really like those sessions too, again, because those characters are like worlds apart. So I don't have to, sometimes I play multiple characters and I have to really worry about their voices sounding too alike. Those are just different humans altogether. Momo actually really evolved. Like, she was very quiet and timid when in the first few, if I'm remembering correctly. I remember, hopefully the voice is the same that I did, but sometimes it just evolves when you start learning more about the characters.
Right.
I always give like the Simpsons example. Like, if you listen to early episodes of the Simpsons, they sound completely different, and it's not their fault. They were just figuring it out. Like, even characters on TV shows, they just change as the writers give them more details. They're like, oh, well, okay, I'm gonna play like Buddy on Charles in Charge. Like, he got dumber every year. That's a very old reference.
Yeah.
But I was like, you didn't start out that stupid. So I think the fans understand and kind of forgive us if it takes us a couple episodes to really jive and find the voice. Hopefully they're not mad.
So like, there must have been multiple times, not just an anime, where you've performed with yourself.
Oh yeah. The biggest example was that Kirby Right Back at Ya.
Oh yeah.
That was Follow Low and Fa La La.
Hmm.
And they always spoke to each other. It was like follow low and follow la, or something like that. And my favorite challenge was to do to not the way we usually do it is record them separately. But
Hmm.
I liked switching back and forth on the one take. It was honestly just a game for myself.
Hmm.
Because I also like doing it because then I could really feel like I was responding, like I was in the moment more. But yeah, we do a lot of scenes with ourselves. Not everybody, but a lot of us do. It's a
So
lonely world.
I guess the most recent non-anime thing, would it be Rainbow High, like that you can talk about?
Yes,
Okay.
that would be yes. I'm trying to think what else and Enchantimals.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so both of those are all, and Barbie, Dreamhouse Adventures.
Hmm.
So those are fun because again, they're non-anime, so they're animating to what you record. So there's like a fun surprise. Like again, I don't watch a ton of it, but when I go watch a little bit, I'm like, oh, that's what she looks like. And it there's something more generic about it because they are animating to what you did.
Hmm.
So there's something. It's just a different process, so it's a fun thing to watch. Sometimes I don't have any idea what the characters look like.
Yeah.
So.
And in terms of anime, is there anything that is secret?
Yeah, I can't tell you about it.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm trying to think if there's anything I can talk. No, I mean the nice thing about the simuldubs is that they come out so quickly. Like the MHA thing, it was so nice to not have to keep that secret for a long time.
Right.
So I was like, oh, cool. I don't think there's anything else I'm allowed to talk about. I'm working on some books right now. I'm working on a couple scripted podcasty things.
Okay.
Which are fun and are sort of like this new way of being an actor in podcasts, which is kind of fun. There's some great scripted stuff out there. What am I allowed to talk about? Oh, like Shimajiro, I'm still working on. That's a much younger show. I'm like looking at my computer to see what I worked on recently. And Boruto, we've been doing more Boruto, doing more. I'm Standing on a Million Lives. We're working on that new season.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That should be out soon, and that's not a secret because they know there's a season 2.
Hmm.
So yeah, stuff like that. Crunchyroll is there's a lot of stuff going on Crunchyroll. There's a lot of anime everywhere. I just read that Netflix just opened up a whole new anime studio in Japan, and I mean, it's so cool to be part of this re-explosion of anime. Like I feel like Pokemon was, again 25 years ago, I guess. And I feel like there's another resurgence now, which is really cool.
Yep. So the way that my final question with every interview is, what do you want your legacy to be?
Bulbasaur, Bulba. No, I have to say that, right? I know I always say like Bulbasaur is going to be on my tombstone. I want my legacy to be that I was like nice to be around, a pleasant human. Like I think so much of this work and where we are in life is like just being a decent person to be around. Like and I hope that's what people say, like, oh, I worked with her, and even if she wasn't the most talented or the most whatever, like we liked having her there. Like I think that's so much more important than necessarily what you do, is just being a good hang. That's
Right.
a terrible legacy. I mean, listen, I want to say that I'm gonna like make like cure diseases. That's not what I do. Like I hope that, and I think a lot of it is that I've gotten to see the results of some of the work I've done already, which is it was so nice that I don't have to wait. Like when I talk to people who grew up with Pokemon, again, I have to reiterate that I'm like a very small cog in the Pokemon wheel, but machine, I don't know. But I'm the face that they see when I go to these conventions and signings. And when I get to talk to people who grew up with the show and who learned life lessons, or who the show got through a tough time, or I mean, I turn into a therapist at a lot of these things. And if my legacy is just that I was part of something that touched a lot of people, that's plenty. Again, I don't take credit for the show. I don't, But if they feel better when they tell me about their experience, I'm thrilled. That I'm happy. I can sleep, that I'm very proud to have been part of a bunch of shows that have moved people or touched people and maybe have changed them. So or just entertain them. I mean, that's fine too. We all need that. I think the pandemic really reminded us that entertainment is like an excellent escape for us, and we all deserve it and need that break.
Yeah, I actually have my own story like that. Because when I was in 4th grade, I was I'm not sure if you remember being on Gatekeepers.
Maybe. Tell me though. Tell me the story. I want to hear this now.
Yeah, but I was renting that via Blockbuster's DVD mail system, like before Netflix was a thing. And just one night we were out to eat with my family, and we were about to leave, and our waitress says, like, well, nobody can leave, and we're all like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, all the lights turn off. People like SWAT team officers come in, and they have to pile everybody into the 2 bathrooms because there's a guy that murdered 2 people, and he crashed his car outside the restaurant, and he was fleeing on foot and trying to get in the restaurant. So everybody who was in there, we had to stay there until midnight, 1 a.m., and we all had to get escorted.
And you're a child. You're a little kid. Wow.
And we all had to get escorted to our cars group by group. And since I was as young as I was, and that's like the main thing I was watching at that time. So that's what I used to.
You associate it with that.
Yeah. To get over it.
That's amazing. I mean, and again, if that was your escape from something really awful and traumatic, and that was your way of distracting yourself from that, or what you think about it, I'm happy to have been not happy to have been a part of it, but yes, if I was part of your distraction, I'm happy to have been a part of it. I'm so sorry you lived through that. And I guess that's what we look to actors and entertainers to do, is take us out of our brains for a minute. But it's amazing. I mean, that's an intense story. I mean, and I hear, a lot of times I hear like my parents were going through a divorce and Pokemon saved me, or I didn't know how to make friends, and when I got the Pokemon cards, I suddenly could make friends. Or so just again, like it's incredible. Like just that it's like me associating the fairy with that show. It's like it's not always about the show itself. It's about where we were in our own lives when we had that around. So thank you for sharing that. I know that's not easy to do. So
thanks for willing to do this. It was fun to bring up stuff.
You're excellent at this, so thank you.
Thank you.
Good questions. I'm so sorry I didn't know the answers to a lot of them, but
it's okay.
I should go watch some of those shows and find out who my imposter is.
Yeah. I'll be sure to send you the link to this too once I have it up.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go right back to Susie and get someone a job.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.